Hey guys, welcome to KamilSec channel. Today we will be going over Nmap or the network mapper for penetration testing professionals. Let's get into it. Nmap is a powerful tool for discovering information about machines on the network or the internet. It also allows us to probe a machine with packets to detect everything we need to know from running services and open ports to the operating system and software versions. But then again, the questions remain. What if the host ping services is closed, or the host or the servers or the machine does not respond to a ping request, especially while scanning from outside the target network and also scanning the server block? When you're scanning the server block, typically the administrators will set it not to respond to a ping request or a ping command. Now, how do you know if the host is alive or not? All right. So if your scan does not respond to ping scan or the ICMP request has been configured by the system not to respond to ICMP, usually this occurs at the firewall level. And if port 80 and 443 are filtered, then Nmap thinks the host is down, even if the host is up, right? So, and also, if you find a system, usually a secure server which is not responding to ping scan. The workaround this is always use the port scan. The port scan is what? Dash PN or tag PN, right? That's the port scan. We're going to be looking at that for further port scanning. Otherwise, Nmap doesn't do the port scan because it assumes the host is not up, and then you might miss some good information about a potential host that you're testing. All right, so this is the syntax for port scan. You have nmap, tag pn, and then your server range, or I mean your IP range or your host range. If your network is not big, you should try to skip the ping scan and try to do port scan for every possible IP address you are testing. This is going to help you to discover more of your host when you're doing the testing. Use a port scan instead of what a ping scan if you are scanning a server block because those systems are configured to be more secure than usual and you can find more systems than using the ping scan. All right, so now let's get into it and see it. All right, so I have a couple of my virtual machines running. So I'm gonna try to do a quick ping scan to see if those machines are alive or if they can respond to my ping scan. All right. So let's get into it. This is how we're gonna do it. A map dash SP, and then I'm gonna specify the range of my IP for all my virtual machine. I'm gonna use the side notation just so I can cover everything within my network. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot of hosts within my lab up and running because I intentionally put them up and running. All right, so you can see I have all these machines up and running. So that's why the Nmap is actually picking them up. All right, so I have this you have this host is up and I so you can see I have all of these hosts up and running, right? It says host is up. So I have all of these hosts up. But then again, the main focus of this tutorial is to you know see how best we can work faster when you're doing penetration testing that requires us to work with multiple IPs, and then you do a quick scan to see what hosts are like within your scope that was within the scope that was given to you, right? So now you see you have all of this. So assuming you have about 100 or 200 IPs, are you going to sit down and start writing them up one after the other? Number one, you might write some IP wrong, or if you're typing them, you might fat fingers. You might fat finger, and then you might type in the wrong IP address, and then from that point on, everything that you're going to do is probably going to be wrong because you didn't even get the right IP address, right from the start. So the goal of this is to help us figure out how best we can use commands to filter out all the noise, and then we can just be left with just the IP address of interest. And then we're going to get rid of all of this extra noise. The main goal here is to, take out all the noise so we can concentrate on just the IP address that we need. That's going to make our life easier, especially when we are going to be feeding these IP addresses into vulnerability scanning tools like Nessus, like Nexpose and stuff like that. We need to be able to have just the IP addresses so we can feed it into the scanning tool instead of just writing them or typing them, which are going to be, for the most part, going to be prone to mistakes. All right, so we go over this. We're going to call back the command that we just run, and this command is going to be nmap, tag sp, and then the range of IP address that I'm trying to scan and see which hosts are live within the range. All right, so now I'm going to do, I don't want to see this results displayed to me just like it was displayed here on my terminal. What I want to do is that I want to pipe this into another command called grep. Right? And then what I want is when you look at the line that contains our IP, right, it starts with what? Nmap scan. All the lines that contains the IP addresses start with what? Nmap scan. So we're going to use the command called grep, pipe and grep. So meaning you pipe in the standard output of this command into another command called grep, right? And then what you want to do is that you want to grep just the line of interest. And the line of interest here start with what? Nmap scan. And how do you do that? With a double quote, and then you just type it just like it is on that the first two words or something. So you have nmap scan, and then you can close the quotation. So now you're telling nmap that to ignore everything else, but just give me the line that contains nmap scan. So what nmap is going to do is that it's going to give you all the lines that contain nmap scan, and that is also the line that contains our IP address of interest, right? All right, so let's run this command and see what happens. You see, this is what we're saying here, right? You have just the line that contains the IP address of interest, and we're not done. We still have this noise here. Our interest is to have just the IP address on the line. Just think about it. If you have like 100 IPs and then you're going to be, writing all those IPs that responded to your ping scan, in order for you to feed these IP addresses into a tool, like a scanning tool like Nessus or Nexpose, that's going to take you a while to write those down. So the aim is trying to take all the noise out so we can have just the IP address, and we can save these IP addresses in a text file, and then we can upload this text file whenever we're doing our scan. All right, but still, we'll still have some of this noise that we don't need. So now we're going to call back the command again, and now we're going to pipe this. We're going to pipe this output into another command, and this command is going to be called what? Cut. So what are we cutting? We're going to cut all this noise, right? Everything here is going to be cut, right? But then how do you specify this command? There's something we call the delimiting factor. So the delimiting factor is tag D, right? So the tag D is saying, let me just explain what the delimiting factor is. The limiting factor is whatever separate those columns, right? So we have column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what is the common denominator that separate this column? It's a space. So we'll take a look at it. You see that it's a space. Nmap space scan space report space 4 space the IP address. So space is the delimiting factor, right? So how do you represent that in the command? You're gonna put a quotation mark, and then you give a space to represent the space, which is the delimiting factor that separate all this column, and then you close your space, right? So when you look at it this way, it's gonna cut based on the delimiting factor. And what is going to be your field of interest? Consider the column, The column is what is called the field, right? So we have field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5. So the field 5 is a field of interest. So we're going to specify that by what? Tag F. And we're going to specify the number 5. That is going to be our field of interest. We are able to eliminate all the noise, and then we are left with just the IP address of interest. And this is what we need. Think about it. This is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 IPs. You might somebody might say, well, I could just write that those down. It's not going to be too hard for me to write or type. Yes, that's true. But when you're dealing with hundreds of IP in an engagement or in a testing project, you don't want to be sitting down there trying to write 50 hundreds of IP with your hands or typing them out. Number one is prone to mistake. You might make a mistake in typing it. You might make a mistake in writing it and stuff and so forth. So you don't want to be caught in the middle of trying to write all these numerous IPs. That's why these commands are very useful. Now that we have all these IPs listed separately, now the final command that we need to run is to do what? We're going to do a redirect. A redirect, we're going to use a redirect sign to redirect this output into a file. And this file can be used easily. We can save this file, and then we can have access to our IP address in a file format. And then that's going to be able to upload into Nexus scans or whatever scan you're going to be using. All right, so I'm going to use home, and then I'm going to call this IPs. So let's just say scan IPs. Just call them scan IPs dot text. All right. So when I enter this command, I'm not going to see any IP address listed on the screen for me at this point because we are redirecting all the output into a file and it's going to be saved. All right. So there you see. All right. So you see, nothing was displayed on the screen. Everything has been redirected into this, the file that we specify. So now when we navigate into this file and then we do ls, you see we have the scan IP .ts that we just saved right now. All right, if you open it up, we can do cat scan IP, and then you see we have the same IP address. Or you can use the nano text editor to open this scan IP. See, you have it here. All right, cool. All right, or you can go to the file manager. You go to document, go to open folder, and then you go to the file systems. You go to your home directory, and then you can see the files here. So when you open it, you see that it's in the text format. So you see, this is easier. This is much easier for you to upload. And again, just think about it. If you're running hundreds of IPs, you don't want to be writing them with your hands or typing them because you might get fat fingers and they write them wrong, or write the wrong IPs, and then from that point on, whatever you're going to be scanning is going to be a wrong IP, and then you're not going to get anything, right? You're not going to go anywhere with those. Okay. All right, so now let's look at the other options that we have. Here are some of the useful options that can help us to discover ports that are listening to network traffic. So number one, we have SynScan, which is also considered the default Nmap scan. And then we also have, so the default Nmap scan, the S here stands for what? Stealthy or secret scan. So it means that whenever you do, it does not complete the three-way handshakes, right? If it doesn't complete the three-way handshake, typically it assumes that it is not logged, it's not being logged in any log server. Nowadays, in the new technology and new skills out there, administrators are getting so sophisticated, so they can actually you know log all of these scene scans. It used to be when you run the scene scan, the tools cannot log them, so nobody sees that you're actually scanning the network. But it's not like that in most cases. Most of these admins out there are very sophisticated, so now they can actually log all the scene scans. So be careful when you run a scene scan and that you're not authorized to do. The second one here we're going to look at is the TCP connect. TCP connect or the TCP scan. This actually completes the three-way handshake, the full three-way handshake. That is what It sends the same flag, it receives the same acknowledgement flag back, and then you send back the acknowledgement flag, and then the communication can start. This is actually very loud on the network, so it is being recorded. It's being logged. Everything that goes through the TCP connect scan or the TCP scan is being recorded. Why? Because it completes all the three-way handshakes. So typically, a lot of pen testers don't run the TCP connect scan. They stick with the default of Nmap, which is what the scene scan, right? And also, if you want to speed things up, right, you don't want to, just let it run all the port, the thousand, the default 1,000 port range. You might want to specify the port of interest that you need. If you want to scan port 21, port 22, 23, 25, just specify them so your scan can move faster. And also, there's option to give it an option to run in setting up your time. You can give it a tag T, and tag T has a lot of options. You can have tag T0, T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, and the normal one is typically what a lot of people use. But if you want to be faster, you can go with aggressive. But the T5 is insane. It's going to be very loud on the network, and you might, people, especially when you're running some black box testing or some stealthy testing that nobody should know. You're just trying to see if you can caught people by surprise. You might want to avoid using the insane. The normal is your best bet because the insane is going to be very loud on the network, right? All right. So before we move into the terminal and start using start testing our commands, I just want to point out this site to you guys. It's called scanme.nmap.org. This site is actually set up for us learning how to do penetration testing and scanning and vulnerability scannings and what have you. You're authorized to use this site to test your skills. So you see, it says we set up this machine to help folks learning about Nmap and also to test and make sure that their Nmap connection or internet connection is working properly. You are authorized to scan this machine with Nmap or other port scanners. Try not to hammer. That's the keyword. Try not to hammer on the server too hard. A few scans a day is fine, but don't scan 100 times a day or use this site to test your SSH brute force password cracking tool. All right, you can use this site to test your skills, but do not hammer on the site, you know, 100 times a day, but a few times a day is fine. So this is a good site that we're going to be using to test our skills and to test our Nmap scanning commands. All right, so we're going to move into the terminal. So we're going to write Nmap scan me dot nmap.org. Right. So the command is Nmap scan me dot nmap.org, and then we enter. All right, so you see, this has completed. It took us almost about what 7.06 seconds, right, to do this scan. And I remember what I was saying that the scene scan is the default Nmap scan, right? So let's try that one with the options. So Nmap tag SS, which is the same as the default Nmap scan. So we're going to do Nmap tag SS, and then we're going to go to scanme.nmap.org. And this is going to give us the same result anyway, because the tag SS is the default scan for Nmap. So when I type in Nmap like so, without specifying any tag or any option, it's just going to run it as the same as what the scene scan, right? So you see we have the same results. These two ports are open on the Nmap scan me, and these two ports are also open here. So this is the same scan. You can specify the tag SS, or you can choose not to specify it. It's still going to run the scene scan. All right. So now the next scan we're going to look at is cat. So now this next scan we're going to look at will be the S tag T, which is going to be the TCP connect scan. And then we're going to specify the scan me.nmap.org. And again, this is going to complete the three-way handshake. So this is going to take a little bit longer than the scene scan that we run. Okay, so you see we have this took almost what 32.98 seconds because it's a what is a TCP connect scan, and this scan will complete the three-way handshake, right? So that's why it's taking a bit longer. And this is a loud scan. See, this scan is going to be very loud on the network. All right, it's not like this one here, which is the stealthy scan, but this is actually going to be a loud scan. All right. Okay, so now let's move on to the next command that we're gonna be running. We're gonna do nmap dash o. Then we do scan me dot nmap dot org. So the tag O here is gonna be what? It's gonna enumerate the operating system, right? It's gonna give us the operating system that is gonna detect whatever operating system this scan me dot nmap is running on. Okay, so we see this site here is running on what we have. It says no exact match OS match matches for this host, so they cannot the Nmap cannot actually detect what exact OS is running on this site here. All right, so let me run one of my machine in my lab and see how what we're gonna get. So we're gonna go to Nmap, and then I have my IP to be 10.0.2.29. This is gonna be a local machine on my network, right? So all right, so there you see, we have this has detected the OS. So the OS detail is actually telling us that this machine here is running on Linux, right? So you see the tag O will actually detect whatever OS you're running, but because it was not able to detect the exact OS that was running on the scan me, that's why we did not see any OS listed. But because of this is a machine that is on my network, on my lab network, and I know this machine is running on Linux, so definitely this is right. This is running on what Linux. Now let's try to use another tag. So we have nmap sv for version, right? So let's do it on scanme.nmap.org. So the tag sv is gonna enumerate the port versions. Whatever port is open is going to list as whatever version that port, what is the port version, the port details. It's going to tell us what port, what version of the port is that. Is it going to be SSH, whatever it is, this is going to tell us. All right. So you see right off the back, we're seeing that port 22 is running on a version of what OpenSSH, and then port 80, of course, is running on Apache, and this is the version of the Apache running, right? So any anything else is not being because this most of these things are close anyways. So this is not it's not able to tell us exactly what the versions are because they are close. Now let's run it on my local machine 10.0.2.29 and see what port versions is running on this metasploitable machine. See, we have a lot because this machine has a lot of ports open. So the 21 is running on what VSF TPD version 2.3.4. The telnet is Linux telnet D, and then we have this version. We have that for the port 53. Port 80, we have the Apache 140, 139, 445. The file sharing, we have the Samba, and these are the versions of the Samba running on those ports. Right? So the SV is actually enumerating the port and giving you the versions of ports running on the machine. And if you want to do further, exploitation to see what are the options or what are the vulnerabilities or exploit on this port, you can do that. But the SV was going to enumerate for you the versions of the various port that is open on the machine. All right, now let's try to do another tag. So we have nmap dash dash traceroute. I'm gonna do scan me dot nmap dot org. All right, so this is telling us that we only have what, one hop, you know, from my machine to scan me dot nmap dot org. All right, so now let's do that on my local machine and see how many hops we're gonna get. We have 10.0 dot 2 dot 29. All right, so we still have one hop here. So the trace route is just going to tell us exactly what are the hops that are going to be jumped onto to get into our destination. All right, so now we have the tag 0, we have tag O, we have tag SV, we looked at the trace route, but there's another one, there's another tag or there's another option that kind of put all of these things together. It's called the tag A, which is an aggressive scan. So this tag A is just going to do whatever we did individually, the tag A is going to do that in one command. So let's see how that works. Nmap tag A, and then we're going to do scan me dot nmap dot org. So you see, the tag A is going to give us more details. It's actually going to give us the tag O, which is going to be the OS detection, and it's going to give us the tag SV, which is going to be the port versions, and then the trace route. So you see, now we have the trace route now here for the scanme.mmap.org. We also have it's saying that no exact OS matches for this host, just like we saw when we did the tag O, in the beginning. It didn't give us any match, so this did not give us any match as well. All right, and then the versions of the port. So you see, we're seeing that the version of the SSH is what Open SSH 6.6.1, and it's running on Ubuntu. So here you see it's giving us the port version, and then the port 80 is also running on Apache, just like we saw. So the tag A combine all the three tags that we saw, the tag O, tag SV, and then the trace route. So when you use the A, you're going to run it under one command, and then you're going to get all of these options that we looked at. All right, cool. And again, when we do, now let's introduce the verbosity. So if I do, say, nmap tag A, and I say I'm going to run it on my local machine, 29, right? So I want to see whatever this machine, this command is doing. I don't want to be waiting here and seeing a blank screen until it's finished running it. So when I introduce the tag V, which is what the verbosity, so the verbosity will show us exactly what the command is doing. You can actually do a double verbosity for more in-depth display. So let me run this first, and then we see. So you see, whatever it's doing is actually showing us exactly the initiation, completion, scanning, whatever it's doing, we're actually seeing it. So that is the option tag, or that's the option V or the tag V. That is what it's doing. It is actually showing us exactly what the command is doing. Okay, so you see we have everything that the command went through has been displayed for us. We actually saw exactly what the command was doing all the way to completion. That is what the tag V is doing. So if I call back the command and then I do tag VV, this is going to be what more. It's going to show us more of what it's doing all the way to completion of running this command. Okay, so exactly what we're saying. Okay, that's the work of the tag V. All right, so now let's introduce the time or the speed. So if we have T1, T2, T3, just like we saw in the lecture, T3 is actually a normal scan. It goes in the normal speed. T4 is aggressive. T5 is insane. So now let's introduce the timing, the speed of the scan. So if I have my Nmap scan here and I specify my my tag A, I do my verbosity, and I'm gonna do a T. I'm gonna do tag. I'm gonna do tag T2, and I'm gonna specify my target, which is scan me. Let me use my machine 10.0.2.29. Let's see how this run. You see, it took a whole lot of time to finish up this one here. All right, so now we're gonna go back and then see if if we change the timing, if it's gonna move faster. So instead of T2, we're gonna make it T4, which is an aggressive time. All right, so this is a whole lot of a time, 549 seconds. All right, so let's see what this would take. So this took only what 39.72 seconds. The other one is about 549 seconds. So you see the T2 and T4, that's the difference between the two. T4 is aggressive, T2 is not. It takes time before it completes the scan. All right, so, and again, I just want to point out that whatever we're doing right now, we are scanning the first 1,000 default ports, right? So if I have it like this, it's going to scan the first 1,000 default port if we didn't specify any port. If I want to scan all the, say, 65,535 ports, I would just specify like that, and this is going to scan all the ports, right? If I don't want to do that, and I probably want to scan, say, a specific port, I'll specify that by, say, tag P. I just want to do port 21. So this is going to scan only port 21 for me. All right, so you see, it's just going to scan only the port 21, which is what? FTP. So you see, there you have it. Only port 21 will scan. So if you don't want to scan all the default 1,000 ports for Nmap, you can specify the port that you want. And if you want to scan all the 65,535 ports, then you can specify the width that's taken out. You can take out that, and then you add another tag here at the behind the P, and this is actually going to scan all the ports, all the 65,000 ports. So let's see how fast that is going to be. Okay, so you see this has completed. It's going to run all the 65,000 ports. All right, so just like I said, so you see the hosts that are up, we have not shown this number of ports. This number of port is closed. 65,505 ports are closed, but it went through all the 65,000, and this number of ports are closed. All right. Again, you can scan a port range. Let's say a map. I'm gonna do tag P, and I'm gonna do 20 to 25 on the host 0.2.29. So this is going to scan just the port that is specified, right? Also, you can scan Nmap -p. We have 80,443, and then we can do that to that 0.2.29. All right, so you see, you can also do this, and then it's going to scan just the port 80 and 443. So 443 is closed, port 80 is open. All right, there you have it. Nmap has a lot of tags and options that you might want to take a look and see which are the options that you want to use. So you could type Nmap dash help. It's going to give you a whole lot of tags. There are a lot of options. You can do the graphable app output that's going to print it out for you. A lot of options that we can use with Nmap. So just take a look at the Nmap and then go through the options. If you have any question, you can put it out at the comment site, and then we can go over that. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, please, you can put it at the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond. And again, please do share the video so other people can see it. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.